Thank you, Sir William, for the introduction. I am Imam Kareem Naseem, seeker of the Eastern Jewels and finder of the Eastern Jewels. I will not partake of your generous offerings, but I will raise a toast to you and the august assembly here today with life-giving water, as I am forbidden to partake of the devil's drink. The best to you all. You ask an interesting question, Sir William. How I, a simple Imam, came to be associated with the Dalai Lama to win the hand of the King of Spain's daughter, Isabella. Isabella was, or is, I should say, she's still one of my numerous wives, a flighty girl at the time. One wants to new ideas, catching her mind and drawing her in, captivating her, focusing her somewhat stubborn mind onto new ways of thinking. It's a trait that is both good and bad. You don't want to be on her bad side, let's put it that way. And she had gotten into her mind that this new Eastern cult that she had discovered, Buddhism, is I believe how she says it, was very interesting, that it was fascinating to her, and that the only thing that she could speak of, and she spoke of it endlessly, was Buddhism. And specifically, the leader of this cult, the Dalai Lama. I hear that he is a nice person. But you see, I couldn't work my way in edgewise to the conversation. All she spoke of, day and night and day and night, was the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama did this, the Dalai Lama did that. This miracle over here, he walked on water. He plucked fruit from the tree and cast it upon the ground and fed multitudes. It very quickly grew tiresome. However, I saw a way of winning my way into her heart, and more appropriately, her bedchambers, by perceiving that if I could convince her I was a member of this group, these Buddhists, that I might be able to trick her, if you may. So, what I had to do was convince her I was a Buddhist, and then slowly move her to understanding the true wisdom that has been imparted upon us by Muhammad of Allah. Not an easy task. First, I had to seek out what the Buddhists were, and that was not too difficult. I am a learned man. I speak numerous languages. So I went and I sought the scholar, and I spoke to him. And he also spoke endlessly about the Dalai Lama. I was beginning to be irritated with this man, and I had never even met him. So, after spending 6 months immersing myself in Buddhist teachings, I came to realize that I couldn't just be a member, that I would have to find my way into the hierarchy of this faith. But Buddhism doesn't have much of a hierarchy. They are the priests, there are the elder priests, and then there's the Dalai Lama himself. Now a priest is not too impressive, and a senior priest is old, and quite possibly not going to be able to take advantage of being married to a woman who was quite as robust and curvaceous as Isabella. So I decided the only thing I could do was to make myself appear to be the very head of this group. Not an easy task, I admit, but what in life is worth anything if it is not a challenge? So I found my way into the court of the Dalai Lama, just as a visiting scholar, mind you, just someone there to listen to what they had to say, watch their prayers, and I spent months just wandering from here and there, I let them get used to seeing me every day. And very slowly, I began to affect their mannerisms. I did not wear such pleasant raiment, such glorious colors, radiating the light of Allah himself. No, I began to put on their saffron robes. I ceased to wear my kufi. I shaved my head so that it was perfectly the same as theirs. I donned their string of beads. And before you knew it, I blended right in amongst them. I took measures to make sure that I prayed my 5 times per day when there was no one around to see. But in the meantime, I partook in theirs. There was no harm in this. As their God is a false God, my participation meant nothing. So I listened. So I learned. So I copied. And very shortly, I found myself as the protege of one of their senior priests. A nice man, very pleasant. I don't remember his name. And he told me that the Dalai Lama always had a routine, so I listened to the routine. The routine was very simple. Rising at dawn, prayers, food, more prayers, more prayers, more prayers. Buddhists love to pray all the time. So I finally decided that if I could get into this prayer group with the Dalai Lama, then I might be able to do something good. So, again, I moved my way in. I fit into the crowd. And before you knew it, I was there every day. And I realized that the Dalai Lama was a man who loved what he did. The teachings of the world were at his disposal, and yet he was stuck doing the same thing every day. The same simple foods, the same prayers, the same austerity. But the Dalai Lama was human. And the Buddha himself, at one time, was a man of the flesh, such as you and I, Sir William. So, I hatched a plan. I spoke to the Dalai Lama in private, and I said, Dalai Lama, I see you, a pious man. A man who has been raised from birth to do this great task. But what have you tasted of life? Have you plucked the fruit of the tree of knowledge itself and tasted it for yourself? Have you now, Dalai Lama? And the Dalai Lama, he had not. So I patched a plan with him. I said, this is what I think you should do. Go forth. Try the world. Taste of it with all its wonders. So that when you return, not only will you have a better understanding of man himself, of the spirit, of your Buddha, of all things, but you can renounce it all, and nothing works better for the crowd of believers than a man who has renounced the worldly flesh. I tell you, donations will fill your coffers like nothing you have ever seen. The Dalai Lama listened. Wise man he was. Always good to take counsel from someone else who was also wise. And he said, I shall go forth. I will learn. I will find out about the world. And so he did. And I stepped into his place. I am very good with disguises, and I need to be useful if you're going to sneak into some other man's bedchamber, if you know what I mean. And so he left. And I took over his roles. Things were apace. Things went well. Unfortunately, the Dalai Lama liked the world a little more than I thought. And after 5 or 6 months, I thought he would return. And he didn't. And after another 5 or 6 months, I began to put inquiries out into the world about a man matching his description that might have been seen by anyone. Perhaps he could come speak to me. And then the first year ended, and the second, and the third. Before I knew it, I'd been at this task with the same austerity, the same boring food, and the same monotonous prayers for 7 years. When finally the Dalai Lama came in, roaring drunk, smelling of hashish, and I believe infested with something that I didn't want to touch. And he said, "I am home!" And I thanked him. Thankfully, all this time, I had been talking to the King of Spain, telling him what a wonderful situation it would be if his daughter would come to marry the Dalai Lama. And the King of Spain, also being a wise man and listening to another wise man, took me up on it. And he was nice enough to betroth his daughter to me. With the real Dalai Lama has returned, I married his daughter. I picked her up, whisked her away to my blessed sands, and let the Dalai Lama himself be getting sober for the first time in 7 years, apparently, and take up his tasks. I believe he remembered how he was supposed to do the prayers. I certainly hope I know I did. I was able eventually to convince Isabella, of course, that the path of Buddhism was not for her, and that the teachings of Muhammad and Allah were far superior in every way. She was, after all, a smart woman. She did marry me, now didn't she? And that, Sir William, is how I was able to arrange this. Deception. Duplicity. I am a remarkably good liar. And it all worked. So, I hope that satisfies your request, Sir William. Now, I would like to turn to another of our August Assembly today. Ernest Tusselback, I believe is his name. Now, you are a man with no titles, and I'm sorry for that. Every man should have a title. It says, but Gregor tells me your renown is known everywhere, that you are the Reaver of onions, though I don't quite grasp what that means. You are the Tickler of trolls, and I imagine that finding where a troll is trickish is not easy. And you are the Confounder of witches, a position I applaud. Much like vampires and cultists, we must do away with witches. Now, Gregor tells me that you once fought a duel with a Prussian prince while bound to the trunk of an Indian elephant while involved in a tiger hunt with the Raj. I wish very much to know how that situation arose. So tell me, Ernest, how did you do that?